The clock was ticking, and Richard Hayes gripped the steering wheel of his luxury car with growing frustration. He was on his way to finalize a $10 million deal, the biggest of his career, and now, here he was, stranded in the middle of nowhere. Smoke rose from under the hood as the engine sputtered and died. Richard stepped out onto the deserted road, scanning the horizon for help. There was nothing, just empty fields and a narrow dirt path stretching endlessly in both directions. He pulled out his phone only to find no signal. "Perfect," he muttered under his breath. For the next hour, Richard tried everything. He flagged down a few passing cars, but they sped past without slowing. He even attempted to fix the engine himself, though his knowledge of mechanics was limited to changing a flat tire. Nothing worked. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the road, Richard's stress mounted. The meeting was scheduled to start in less than an hour, and there was no way he'd make it on time. Just when all hope seemed lost, a faint rumbling sound broke the silence. A moped appeared in the distance, driven by a young boy wearing a delivery uniform. "Need help?" the boy called out, stopping beside Richard's car. Richard hesitated. Could this kid really do anything? But at this point, he had no other options. "I'm trying to get to the city center," Richard explained quickly. "My car broke down, and I have an important meeting soon." The boy nodded confidently. "Hop on. I'll take you as far as I can." Richard climbed onto the back of the tiny moped, feeling ridiculous yet grateful. As they sped off, he couldn't help but wonder who this stranger was, and why he was willing to help someone like him. As they rode together, the boy introduced himself as Sam. Despite his young age, he carried an air of responsibility that struck Richard. "I've got deliveries to make," Sam explained, glancing at the stack of packages strapped to the back of his moped. "But I figured you looked like you needed help more than my customers do." Richard raised an eyebrow. "You're giving up your work for me? Why?" Sam shrugged. "Everyone needs a hand sometimes. Besides, those packages can wait. Your meeting can't." The simplicity of Sam's words hit Richard hard. Here was a boy who clearly had little. His worn uniform and patched-up moped spoke volumes about his circumstances, yet he was willing to sacrifice his own time to help a stranger. During the ride, Sam shared bits of his story. He worked long hours delivering food and packages to support his family after his father fell ill. Money was tight, but Sam dreamed of going back to school one day to become something bigger. "You remind me of myself when I was younger," Richard said suddenly, surprising even himself. Sam laughed nervously. "I doubt that. You're a billionaire. I'm just a delivery boy." "Don't sell yourself short," Richard replied firmly. "Hard work like yours gets noticed. Trust me." By the time they reached the edge of the city, Richard felt a strange mix of emotions: gratitude, admiration, and guilt. How could someone with so little give so much? "This is as far as I can take you," Sam said, pulling over near a busy intersection. "From here, you should be able to catch a cab or something." Richard climbed off the moped, shaking Sam's hand firmly. "Thank you, Sam. I won't forget this." Sam grinned. "Just glad I could help. Good luck with your meeting." As Richard flagged down a taxi, he glanced back at the boy riding away. Something told him their paths weren't done crossing. Not yet. The taxi ride felt endless, but Richard's mind was racing faster than the car could move. He couldn't stop thinking about Sam, the boy who had sacrificed his own time to help a complete stranger. In all his years of climbing the corporate ladder, Richard had rarely encountered such selflessness. When the taxi finally screeched to a halt outside the sleek office building where the meeting was being held, Richard glanced at his watch. 2 minutes to spare. He rushed inside, straightening his tie and smoothing his hair as he entered the conference room. The potential partners, a group of investors, were already seated around the table, looking impatient. "Mr. Hayes," one of them said coolly, "we were beginning to think you weren't coming." "My apologies," Richard replied, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "There was an unexpected delay, but I'm here now, and I assure you, this deal is worth every second." As Richard launched into his presentation, he found himself unusually focused. Every word carried extra weight, not just because of the stakes, but because he knew how close he'd come to losing it all. If not for Sam, he wouldn't be standing there. By the end of the meeting, the investors were nodding approvingly. When they shook hands to seal the $10 million deal, Richard exhaled deeply, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. But even as he celebrated the victory, his thoughts kept drifting back to Sam. That boy had saved more than just the deal. He'd reminded Richard of the values that had driven him to success in the first place: hard work, humility, and kindness. After the meeting, Richard discreetly asked his assistant to track down Sam's contact information. "Find out everything you can about him," he instructed. "I owe him more than just a thank you." Later that evening, Richard sat in his home office, staring at the notes his assistant had gathered. Sam's story was even tougher than Richard had imagined. Working long hours to support his family, putting dreams on hold. It resonated deeply with Richard's own past struggles before he made it big. "I need to repay him," Richard muttered to himself. But how? An idea began forming in his mind. What if he could give Sam the chance he deserved? Not just money, but an opportunity to change his life. With renewed determination, Richard picked up his phone and sent a text to his assistant. "Set up a meeting with Sam tomorrow. Tell him it's important." As he leaned back in his chair, Richard smiled. This wasn't just about gratitude anymore. It was about paying forward the kindness that had saved his day. The next morning, Sam arrived at the address Richard had given him, a towering skyscraper in the heart of the city. He felt out of place in his worn delivery uniform, clutching the helmet of his moped as he stepped into the polished lobby. "This has to be a mistake," Sam muttered under his breath, glancing around nervously. But before he could second-guess himself, a receptionist greeted him warmly. "You must be Sam. Mr. Hayes is expecting you. Please follow me." Sam was led to a luxurious office on the top floor, where Richard stood waiting by the window, gazing out at the sprawling city below. When he turned to face Sam, his expression was warm and genuine. "Sam, thank you for coming," Richard said, extending a hand. "No problem," Sam replied hesitantly, shaking it. "But why am I here?" Richard gestured for him to sit. "I wanted to thank you properly for what you did yesterday. You saved my deal, and possibly my reputation." "It was nothing," Sam said quickly, looking down at his hands. "Just doing what anyone would have done." "That's where you're wrong," Richard countered firmly. "Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have put aside their own work to help someone like me. And that's why I want to do something for you." Sam frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Richard leaned forward, his tone serious but kind. "Tell me about your dreams, Sam. What do you want most in life?" Sam hesitated, caught off guard by the question. Finally, he shrugged. "I guess I'd like to go back to school someday. Maybe start a business or something. But right now, I just need to take care of my family." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "Here's what I'm offering. I'll cover your tuition so you can finish school. I'll also set you up with resources to start your own business, whatever you're passionate about. Think of it as an investment in someone who deserves it." Sam stared at him, stunned. "You're serious? Why would you do all this for me?" "Because kindness matters," Richard replied simply. "And because people like you remind me of why I started my journey in the first place. You've got potential, Sam. Don't let circumstances hold you back." For a moment, Sam couldn't speak. His mind raced with doubts. Was this real? Was it too good to be true? "I don't know what to say," Sam admitted finally, his voice trembling. "You don't have to decide right now," Richard said gently. "Take some time to think about it. But remember this. Opportunities like this don't come often. Don't let fear stop you from taking it." As Sam left the office, his head spun with possibilities. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dream, not just of surviving but of thriving. Over the next few months, Sam's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. With Richard's support, he enrolled in night classes to finish high school while continuing his delivery job during the day. It wasn't easy. Juggling work, studies, and family responsibilities left little time for rest. But Sam was determined not to waste the opportunity he'd been given. Richard stayed involved, checking in regularly and offering guidance whenever Sam needed it. Together, they brainstormed ideas for a small business Sam could start once he completed his education. Inspired by his years of delivering packages, Sam decided to launch a courier service tailored to local businesses, a venture that combined his experience with his dream of entrepreneurship. With Richard's financial backing and mentorship, Sam rented a small warehouse, purchased a fleet of mopeds, and hired a team of drivers from his community. Within months, the business took off, earning praise for its efficiency and reliability. One evening, as Sam stood outside the bustling warehouse, watching his employees load packages onto mopeds, he felt a deep sense of pride. This wasn't just a business. It was proof that hard work and kindness could lead to incredible outcomes. Richard visited often, always impressed by Sam's progress. "You've done amazing things, Sam," he said one afternoon, clapping him on the back. "I knew you had it in you." "None of this would have happened without you," Sam replied sincerely. "You gave me a chance when no one else would." "That's not true," Richard countered. "You earned this. All I did was open the door. You walked through it." Sam smiled, realizing how much he'd grown since that fateful day on the road. He wasn't just helping his family anymore. He was creating opportunities for others, just as Richard had done for him. His success didn't go unnoticed. Local newspapers featured stories about Sam's journey, calling him an inspiration to young entrepreneurs everywhere. Friends and neighbors who once doubted him now looked up to him, asking for advice on starting their own ventures. Through it all, Sam remained humble, never forgetting where he came from, or the boy on the moped who had once dreamed of something better. Years passed, and Sam's courier business grew into a thriving enterprise, serving cities across the region. But success didn't change him. It only deepened his commitment to helping others. Inspired by Richard's generosity, Sam established a foundation to support underprivileged youth, offering scholarships and mentorship programs to kids facing challenges similar to those he'd overcome. One afternoon, as Sam addressed a group of students at a local school, he shared the story of how a billionaire's gratitude had changed his life. "Kindness creates ripples," he told them. "What you do for others may come back to you in ways you can't imagine. So always be willing to lend a hand, even when it seems like there's nothing in it for you." Afterward, a young boy approached him shyly. "I want to be like you someday," the child said, clutching a notebook filled with sketches of inventions he hoped to build. Sam knelt down, smiling warmly. "You already are. Just keep believing in yourself, and don't let anyone tell you your dreams are too big." That evening, as Sam drove home on his moped, the same one he'd ridden years ago, he reflected on how far he'd come. From delivering packages to building a business, from struggling to provide for his family to empowering others, his journey had been shaped by kindness, resilience, and gratitude. And as he looked up at the starlit sky, he knew one thing for sure: the ripple effect of kindness never truly ends. Every act, no matter how small, has the power to change lives, including your own.